So hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out. I know that we were going to talk about acknowledgements, etc. today, but we've decided to go into the designated representation. Last time we spoke about self-represented parties. Today we'll do designated representation. We'll touch a little bit on multiple representation. And then when we have more of the forms available to us, then we will talk a little bit more about acknowledgement and how to fill out the forms and that sort of thing. So today we're going to talk about designated representation. Designated representation within our brokerage is going to be adopted as of December the 1st. This is something that is a decision of the brokerage. The brokerage designates the agents. They decide if we're going to be doing designated representation throughout the brokerage or if we are going into brokerage representation. The reason that most of the changes in Tresa have come about is because the public was confused as to customers, what duties we held to a customer, and then what the agent was to be doing. So in the past, and we'll go a little bit more into this, we always used brokerage designation. Now we're going to have the brokerage designate agents to represent the client, whether it is a buyer or a seller. That's designated representation. The designated agent has a duty to protect the confidential information of the client and to represent the client's best interests. The brokerage is still bound by the representation agreement to provide services to the client, but the actual representation is offered by the designated agent. Okay. Today, the brokerage Century 21 Heritage Group and all of its agents represent the client. That's why when you have more than one agent within the brokerage working on each end of a deal, we are in multiple representation. And that is not always held in the best interests of the clients. So one of our biggest takeaways from the new Tresa legislation is to stay away from multiple representation as much as possible. It will still exist, but there are going to be some pretty strict rules around multiple representation. And designated representation is just going to make it easier for you to operate on a day-to-day basis. As of December the 1st, the individual designated representative works with their own, let's say, seller client, the listing agent, and another individual designated representative works with the buyer client. Each client has representation of their own. Each client's best interests are promoted and their confidentiality is protected. Multiple representation will be avoided in that manner. The listing agreement and the buyer representation agreement, the BRA, both have a line to name one or more designated representatives under the brokerage. These are the new forms that will be coming out and made available to you. I believe it's on November 29th. They will be available for review. December 1st, they will be in effect to be used. I will tell you that I am going to TREB tomorrow for a broker's preview of all of the forms. I know Aaron has already been, as has John Smulders. They went last week. I'm going to go tomorrow. So we will be up to date on all of the forms and how to use them for you as soon as they become available to us. So teams and licensed assistants, all agents who might have access to or might discuss the client's confidential information should be identified as designated representatives under the agreement. Otherwise, you need to be able to ensure that you practice confidentiality. This is something that we will be discussing with our teams, or if you are a couple, a husband and wife team, you should both be designated as the designated representative if there is any chance that confidential information will be passing from one agent to the other. What if you go on holidays or become ill? In order to change designated representatives, the designated agent or the brokerage can assign another agent, but the client must agree. So a lot of the time it will be to your benefit to name an alternate as soon as you are signing the client to a representation agreement, so that if for some reason you are not available, we know who to go to as your alternate. This is just a quick example of what the forms are going to look like. So this is a listing agreement for a property to be sold. So what they are calling these now is seller representation agreements. So you have the brokerage name, the brokerage information, the seller's name, and then you have the designated representative, one or more, and what their designation is, whether they're a salesperson, broker, record. And that's who is going to be the designated representative for the party. So then we're going to talk a little bit about avoiding multiple representation. We're going to be, as a brokerage, suggesting that agents set up a referral buddy within the brokerage to be able to pass on a consumer to a trusted associate for designated representation for a referral fee and to avoid multiple representation. So you're the listing agent, you're holding an open house on your listing. You have a consumer come up to you who's very interested in doing an offer on your listing. So even now, we suggest that to avoid the multiple representation or to be at arm's length from that relationship, you refer it to another agent within the brokerage, especially if there are multiple offers on the offer. Under designated representation, we're going to be strongly suggesting that you refer a client or a consumer to another representative within the brokerage, and whatever sort of a referral fee you set up with them, that person is going to take over that consumer as a client and work with them under designated representation for that trade. That will avoid multiple representation. Multiple representation has another level of disclosures and limited services and representation, offering to the consumer options regarding choices for representation. So as soon as they bring out these forms, we're going to see what's involved in them, but it's almost first with the RICO information guide, and then the paperwork that's going to have to be signed in multiple representation. It is going to be discouraging consumers from entering into multiple representation. They are going to want their own designated representative to look after their best interests.
Isabel, I have one quick question for you regarding this referral fee. Is this something that has to be disclosed in writing to the seller when you're doing this? Like, how is that disclosure made if it has to be made at all?
Well, the referral, I have asked for clarification from Rico. At this point in time, we're not positive what we have to disclose to other agents, but to the seller, yes, you're going to absolutely have to make that disclosure. You always owe your client accounting, which is disclosure of all of the financial facts of um, how you are charging a commission. In your listing agreement, this is another part of the forms that's going to be coming up. You're going to have to, as soon as you're signing a client up to a listing, you're going to have to outline what sort of commissions are going to be charged if you have a consumer coming to you directly, if you have to refer that consumer to another designated representative. It's all going to be outlined in your listing agreement. Okay. The referral buddy would work with the consumer, offer and during the offer and sign the representation agreement to become a designated representative and take on the duties, services, and responsibilities of an agent for that client. So it's not just going to be a referral for the offer. That consumer is actually going to become a client of the designated representative, and that designated representative is going to have to take them start to finish through the buying process, meaning they're going to have to represent that person during a building inspection or any amendments or anything that happens between the time of the offer and closing. That consumer is then a client of the new designated representative, and that designated representative is going to have to work with the client all the way through to closing. Okay, this new Tresa is really discouraging multiple representation and the liabilities involved in it. So, under all representation agreements, things that are going to be required are the date that the agreement takes effect and the date it expires. There is now going to be extra initials where it expires, so people are completely aware of the expiry date of the agreement, not just if it's more than 6 months. It's going to outline very specifically the method to determine remuneration being money, and how you're going to be paid. It's going to outline the circumstances when remuneration may change. Any remuneration offered to another brokerage is going to be outlined, or to another designated representative. It's going to outline the services provided by the brokerage and any terms related to a termination of the agreement. Further to that, designated representation is going to outline the fact that the brokerage is not providing representation. It's going to outline the duties of the brokerage, the names of each designated representative, services provided by the designated representative, and duties of the designated representative. All of these things are going to be outlined in the agreements, and we can't, I guess, advise you right now what kind of format that's going to be in until we actually see the forms. We're seeing some of the forms, and when we get the schedules that are going to be attached to the listing agreement or by BRA, we will sit down and help you prepare a list of circumstances and how you're going to deal with them, the services you're going to provide, what's included in your services, etc. So I've said this in our previous presentations, and all of the managers are going to tell you that this is a little bit of a fluid transition period. We're not sure of the details because, of course, we haven't put this into practice yet, and they're not giving us all of the absolute information until just a couple of days before it takes effect. So we will be working our way through it with you. We're not going to leave you high and dry on all of this. Okay. So once again, once we have the new Tresa forms for distribution, we will be conducting training sessions with instructions, including suggested content on how and when to fill out the forms. So as I say, we're not going to leave you high and dry. We are going to make suggestions for you. We are going to take a very close look at the forms, and we've only got a couple of weeks now left to do it. So as I say, as soon as they make those forms available to us, all of them, then we can start working our way through it.